That is a masterful interpretation, Craig. And I mean, it's nearly ready for the stands. I think it's it's really a terrific orchestration, and it's the kind of quality that I'm coming to expect from you. So there we are. This evaluation may be a little shorter than some of the others. Just because, I mean, it's there. I don't have enormous amounts of picky little things to say, but I will think of some. All right. So let's launch into it. And yeah, oh, it's just so fun. I like the way that you. Oh, yeah. It's I mean, it's so impressive that it's easy to kind of overlook the way that things have been transposed around, right? From E Phrygian to A Phrygian. But yeah, still really, really cool. All right, well, I will just muddle along as best I can here, trying to give you some advice. Just really tasty. To play fair about this, I suppose, kind of giving you some feedback according to the evaluation criteria. And, just like everybody else, I'll give you a little bit of feedback on the harp here. I feel that, if you had, instead of this roll here, or this kind of rolled grace notes in here, I think what would be more effective would be an actual glissando up to there, Bium 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 bum bum bum. I mean, I think that that's kind of what you want, anyways. But this roll is not going to come through, with that much amount of force from everybody else going on at the same time. So I think you need more of like a glissando, a little tiny glissando upsweep. To look at to start with the evaluation criteria, pitch weight in the upper middle register of the piano. That's not a big concern here. You spread around the texture pretty well. But the next concern is one you might want to think about a little bit, right? I mean, it doesn't really show as much because of the excellence of the orchestration, but thematic material repeats often, possibly sounding repetitive if orchestrated the exact same way throughout, right? So, in other words, the piano score basically relies on two almost identically scored pairs or four pairs of notes in couples, right? So you sort of have them repeat and then you have them repeat again. So you vary the arrangement a little bit here and there. You're adding a note here and so on. And, I mean, it's not identical, but to the ear, it's identical, right? So, if you're looking for ways to possibly, fiddle with this a little bit, I would say possibly think about a way to progress the texture a little bit between these two. It could be something as simple as just like holding off on the timpani until here or something, or holding off on the timpani and lower brass until here. So I mean, I'm not saying what to do or what not to do, but it's just, thinking of ways that that you could, you know, make it make the make a sort of a differentiation between these two groups of four bars. I mean, you could get smaller. Some people did that. They started off really big, and then the echo, right, was smaller towards the end. But there's, in terms of the orchestration, it's very, very nice. There's all these really great touches, like these open A fifths jumping up to the high E 4 times in a row. And then here, this is just a very, very simple, a very simple kind of double stop. Just fingering the D, fingering the E on the D string, and then jumping up to a fingered A on the E string. Yeah, just very, very cool ideas. This is this is all pretty nice too. Piccolo up there above, doubling the first flute, and yeah, I mean, yeah, the grace notes here, the grace note for the first flute will be much more powerful than it will be for the piccolo. So like, just really great decisions, really nice sense of craft there. And then A2 oboes. I think the flute is all right here. It's not the strongest. It probably would be more powerful if it were up an octave and there was just A2 flutes up here. But I mean, you do get that nice mixed color along with the first violins and so on. I'll tell you one thing: if you do put your second flute up here, so that it's essentially A3 in the flute family, then there will be less of a chance of the oboes and first and second violins from swallowing the sound of the flutes, right? Which is something that they would be prone to do. The way you got it scored is fine, though. I mean, you could always be doubling the flutes at pitched as well, but you don't need to do that. Yeah, it's messing with my mind, Craig, looking at this all transposed. Okay. Yeah, but just so fun. And then, like, with having everything down a fifth means that you don't have to go so incredibly high with this. It's all perfectly playable and sounds very nice. And I love the way that you break off here into the octave with the seconds and the horns coming in here, and then dovetailing into the trumpet line right in here. That's so cool. I really like it a lot. Yeah, you could have had this as C trumpet as well. But I mean, I appreciate this sort of kind of more gutsy sound of the B flat trumpet, slightly more gutsy. Yeah, and then it just, yeah. All right, so I should do everything in order, right? So the scoring here, nicely done. Good support here from these lower instruments, and the cellos and the lower winds and brass. Nice little touches of timpani and these cool little percussion instruments right in here. Very well done, and good first page layout. Okay, now the next section, melodic development soaring quite high, just what I was talking about before. I think that works really good, and then just like throwing this in, and then like the same concern here, like just having A2 flutes thickening this line on top, right, and just kind of making it very, very direct sounding in the first violins. And then so this is also nicely done. The flutes trading off to the piccolo. Although like now that everything is down a fifth, yeah, you could easily go up to that top A with your first flute, right? If you want more thickening of the string line. So like the the transposition down a fifth is the perfect way to address the whole problem of melodic development soaring quite high, right? And so that takes care of that. Boom, like there's no longer a problem. But this is nice. I approve of the way that you broke this up into two different sounding, like the first half and the second half. So it didn't have to be one continuous line. It is a continuous line for the firsts and the seconds. But then the other instruments come in and join, and that's nice and powerful. And there's some other cool stuff in here. The bassoon trading off to the English horn. I would say have them trade off actually on middle C, right? So the yep up 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 up, right, and then going to the middle C here. I think that they need to overlap. Nice. I also approve of this. If your first trumpet is basically just going to be soloing for almost the whole piece, then it's better to drop trumpets 2 and 3 onto the lower staff. I agree with a lot of these decisions. Very nicely done. All right, and that takes us up to here. And like the way that you are adding weight below on the second beat, that and then like also timpani and so on, bassoons coming in, and the idea in the middle strings, that helps to delineate this as the beginning of the rhythmic phrase on the second beat, which is something I'm being very picky about, I know. But it's just that I just feel it weakens the music if you go 1 2 3 1 2, and it's like that just you lose the sense of starting on the second beat. 2 3 1 2 and 3 and 1. So I mean, like here's the problem, right, with dropping things down a fifth is that it's sort of hard to it's harder to justify dropping an octave, right? So like from the very, very high E, you could just let off with the piccolo, and then all of a sudden everybody was like on the more respectable high E, right? The more reachable high E, down an octave from there. But yeah, I mean, what can you do, right? Unless you drop everything quite a bit, and I don't think that works very well with the way that you've got this line, and the way it's lowering and the way that you have the support and everything. It's all scored perfect for that kind of thing. So, so yeah, I totally approve. Yeah, oboe in piccolo in octaves works great. And then here, we've got just the violins, right? So here's where I feel that you could just use a little bit more support here, right? Because we're going from strings doubled by winds, strings doubled by winds, strings doubled by nothing, with increasing pressure from horns and lower brass, right? So right in here, I would say, you got an English horn. It's not doing anything, sort of just picking its nose there. So just, I would say, throw that in at least on the first violin line. Just something this just needs to be thickened up just a teeny bit, right? Maybe even. Well, no, you don't need to make this into 2 octaves. I think adding the English horn will be enough in terms of thickening this up, but you just need some kind of added strength there. And then so really, really important. This is sempre staccato. That's sempre staccato, and so is this. This does not get left off the hook. All right, they're all staccato. And, just like you've got right here, there's no need to continue marking endless staccatos. All right, now this is so cool. So you're going ritardando, and then you're ending with this savage bar, right, of... yeah, so is it ritardando to the allargando and then accelerando, or is it ritardando past the allargando, right? I always feel like you need to get here you need to get here and you need to just really indicate like what is going on here, right? Just that you just really want it slow and, like I would say deliberato, right? Meno, comma, deliberato right here, and then allargando. I mean, you are already pesante here, right? So, yeah, but I really love is yum bum 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 bum. Okay, so yeah, and that's very cool. I don't think you need the accent so much because you've got the tenuto already, right? And we're assuming that you are like if you do this, you're going to end up more or less being sounding it around fortissimo, right? And it's just because of you're really going zoom, zoom, zoom. There's really it's really just kind of blasting away at these notes here. So what I would do here is just make these into eighths, right? So that they match the same, dun dun, you zoom, 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 right? So it's the same amount of zoom, right? Because this is going to be zoom, 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 zoom. So zoom, zoom. So otherwise it's zoom, 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 right? You know what I mean? So just make it the same amount of push on this first note. So just make it an eighth note so that it matches the same. Because otherwise you have unequal amounts of push, right? So eighth note and then just eighth rest. Don't worry about the supposed break in continuity. It won't be audible. And then come in here on the third beat again. Right. Okay. So that takes us to this lovely, and I just love like how this is so like just like yeah dun 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 bum 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 yeah okay, very cool. Yeah, and I don't have a big problem with any of the way that this is scored. I love the idea of soli. I don't think yeah, okay, soli a2. So I would say reverse that a2 soli. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, just twice, and that's so nice. Yeah, and that's the touches of timpani in there, and the and your percussion. Yeah, and then just the little plucks, right? This time we're not thinking about high E's, we're thinking about A's, and like since they're not so high, that's not the hugest concern in our evaluation criteria. So, hey Craig, when you do these scores, can you restore the rehearsal marks that I have in my in my template and in the announcement and like in the and so on and so forth, because it really really helps me. Okay. All right. So our major concerns, looking ahead to B, this should be B, and the previous is A. And I know you don't put a rehearsal mark at the beginning of a piece, but it has to do with just the way that things are divided you're divided into sections, just conceptually for the evaluations, and also just helping me to define who is doing what at what level in Patreon, just in a kind of a practical way. That's also important. So yeah, so starting on section B. So contrast of color and breadth of texture and middle register scoring, that's all taken care of. In fact, I really love the kind of heaviness that you're throwing in here. And it's a very dramatic heaviness, but not overdone, right? It's like just enough. You're not necessarily pounding people over the head, but you are just really like kind of stomping for a few bars, right? Maintaining differentiated roles and closely spaced melodies, overlapping accompaniment figures, highlighting inner voices. That's all coming through here very nicely, right? So we don't have to belabor the point. You're doing that, right? And especially using A2 trombones on the counter melodies, right? So I'm just going to point out one thing to you though that you might have missed, Craig. And that is that the scoring of the piano part is disguising the fact that the second counter melody ends on the triplets, right? The B that happens in between bar 32, at the end of 32 going to 30, excuse me, the B that happens at 33 coming from the counter melody at 32, that B is the beginning of the melody, right? It's not the end of the counter melody. The counter melody ends right? So that's something to think about. Like, could you have avoided using the clarinets here and then just gone straight to the very sinister trombones going yada-da-dum, and then had the clarinets come in yada-dum, right? As a contrast. And then that makes things even more interesting going here to this melody. Bum, bum. And, the lovely thing about dropping everything a fifth is that it just makes... There are so many more instruments that can be involved in key roles. Like the horns can, they're in a much sweeter spot and they can play higher on the melody. And it also brightens up the triplets as well, as we can see here. Like, so it's like... Yeah, not only can you, do you bring the ceiling down, but you bring the basement up, right? Okay. All right, so, but, other than that little picky point, I really love what you're doing here. Those B's, E's, G, da, dum. Of course, like the E's are sounding A and so on. Yeah, really, just really nice and beefy and beautiful, and yeah, very, very cool. And then, of course, like, my whole concern here was keeping triplets from overwhelming the melodic line above, and if the melody is sort of sitting in horns and tremolo strings, there's absolutely no concern about that. One thing that I would say that I kind of miss in here is the sense of leaping, right? It's like the left hand in the original has the you know what I mean? And so we're kind of missing that, like you're kind of sort of punching that ending note, right? But there isn't that kind of the sense of so these instruments are not doing the dance the right way, is what I feel, right? There aren't enough elbows and knees, right? Is kind of what I feel in there. But that doesn't mean it's unfixable. You could easily adjust what you're doing here in the bassoons and cellos and double basses and so on, and tubas. It really does kind of hold on a bit, right? It's kind of that static energy at the bottom instead of the jumping energy. But, I mean, that's just an aesthetic choice, right? I wouldn't challenge you on it. It's just what you felt right in there. And then I love this, how it goes to bassoons, or first bassoon, and first violins. I feel that works really, really nicely. And then you add, like, diminuendo to piano here, dovetailing to oboes and bass clarinet, right? So that is such a cool combination alongside violas and cellos, and it's such a smooth transition, and also it just plays so beautifully. And then bringing in the second violins, and then shifting off the energy right in here. So like here you're realizing that we're seeing that more clearly delineated. Okay, and then you bring this down to really, really soft, and then the harp is just magical in here, right? It's so awesome. And that just takes us to Adagietto rubato. Right, and... Okay, all right, Craig, so we got to talk about this, What does Falla want, right? I mean, we got to know what we want, right? But what does Falla want here? He wants you to go half as fast, twice as slow, doppio più lento, but but a little bit more, right? Ma sempre mosso, right? So he wants, so it's almost like saying, okay, half the speed but a little faster, right? So here you're going half the speed but a little slower, right? And I mean, I see like what you're doing here, like emotionally, you make things kind of pay off later. But I just sort of wonder, are things going too slow here? I mean, I love the molto ritardando to maestoso here, and I think that's really powerful. But yeah, I mean, I just wonder about this being so very slow, in terms of like what you are emoting here. And there's a few other things here, like could this possibly be portato, right? So these are pulsed. Da, 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 da. So it's almost sobbing, right? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And what about and you want like lots of vibrato. That's great. That's so fun. But like along with that, any chance of like some nuances in here, right? Da crescendo, da da da, diminuendo, and then crescendo, da da diminuendo, and then a little crescendo again, and portato again. Da 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 da. Bum 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 bum. I mean, it's yeah. So you can see right here. I believe this is from the this is from the score, right? Yep. So yeah. So just think about that. Think about portato. Think about adding some more nuances in here. Just really guide the soloist. You want them to sing. Okay, so notice this, people who are sort of listening in on my little session here with Craig. By picking an instrument that is just naturally soloistic, everybody could be piano, and the first violins could be pianissimo, sul ponticello, and the trumpet didn't need to be marked forte, right? So it's just a matter of like this is an example of what I mean when I tell people like just instead of marking things mezzo forte forte piano and pianissimo all in the same bar by different instruments. Instead, just like picking having very choices that work very simply in with most people playing the same dynamic, right? So it's mostly mostly piano here, right? And this, I would say don't worry about the harp because that's just, the harps need to be scored up. And this pizzicato, I think, is like you could just, right here, Craig, you could have just had a piano with an accent or probably even better a tenuto mark, right? And then you get the same thing, mezzo piano. And then everybody can just be the same dynamic. And then, of course, you need to suppress these horns so that they don't just blast out of the texture. So then you just end up with piano and pianissimo, right? Okay. And yeah, all works beautifully, like within all the little intriguing stuff that the horns are doing right in here. It's just so lovely, and and maintaining the sense of sixteenths right in there. We just having these repeated notes. I think you could score these. You could score these as a measured tremolo, right? So just a dotted half note with a double beam tremolo on the stem. Would just it's kind of hard to read. Like even with this, for instance, like the player might think that it's a very crammed together C flat, right? If their eyesight is going sort of like mine is. Yeah. Yeah, and don't forget, with this kind of stuff, the harp is there, to help with any kind of figuration or any kind of sort of gleaming little thing entering and leaving, because like one of our, what is one of our concerns here, keeping the accompaniment pattern from becoming too regular and therefore too predictable. And you are changing things around here with the horns, and yeah, so that's not a huge concern, but maybe you want just a little bit more variety in there. Right? So in that case, you've got a harp which is not doing anything and is very audible. Just something weaving in and out of the fabric, maybe, not rather than just really having the harp play something laborious. Careful treatment of the melodic voice to make it feel authentic to the composer's style. I already talked about the nuances, and I think the trumpet works really well, and especially in this dynamic context. Okay, so just right in here, just make sure that this is really audible. Right? So just, yeah, don't feel bad about bringing out this sort of leaping, passionate, sort of jumping around kind of stuff in here. I think that it's extremely important. And yeah, and then just the answering bassoons. I'd say if you're going to if bassoon is going to be answering the trumpets and it's going to be doubling the violas, it is perfectly fine to have A2 bassoons doubling the violas here. And then rising, right, and then this, and here, okay, here's another cool thing that dropping things a fifth has done here, and that is to put this within this beautiful range, absolute perfectly delicious range of the flute. It's like beautifully positioned within the upper register of the flute. It's absolutely perfectly within those parameters. And I feel that this is all working wonderfully again. Yeah, and then just a little bit of English horn doing, the little jaws thing up here. And touch of oboe and clarinet and so on. Yeah, so yeah, just all working great. And then, these little touches of support coming in here, the harmony from the oboes. So in my evaluation criteria, this is the point where I'm saying, like, you need to manage your sense of restraint leading to a burst of energy, right? So you don't really mark a lot of tempo changes right in here, but seeing where you're going with this molto ritardando, and then having the burst of energy actually be like an allargando, that works perfectly, and it's just such an original idea. And I love the balancing that you've got in here, this balancing act here with these instruments coming in, piano, piano, pianissimo, pushing to a mezzo piano under the forte, and mezzo forte of the right in here. These could be forte. They don't need to be mezzo forte. It could be mezzo forte crescendo to forte. I think is fine right in here. Right, and that with the horns coming in so powerfully. Yeah, and it sounds great in your mock-up, by the way. Just really, really realistic sounding. Right, and then one solo right in here. I just almost feel like that trumpet could take over here. It just really is more of a trumpet kind of a thing, but it works great with horn. Dun 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 dun. It's very nice. It couldn't hurt to have that little poco animato thing that the pianists throw in, right? Yeah, and then right. Okay, and then about the only thing that there is to add right in here is just this section right in here. It's for you, Craig, it's not as snazzy as it could be, right? Like for somebody who is not has not developed their orchestration chops up to your level, this is totally fine, works great. But is there something more that you could be doing? I mean, there's a bunch of things you could do. Anyways, not to give you ideas or anything, but all right. But all of this works fine. Yeah, I mean, the harp is not going to be all that audible, but you can solve things by having it forte, nice big rolls, forte, and I would say tenuto or accented chords right in here, and then it'll come out a little bit more. All right, and then just like the same thing again. All right, so now we're getting into this fun D section here. Maintaining the rather hallucinatory feeling of the music despite fairly straightforward building blocks. All right, and then at the same time, continuing concern about low broken bass octaves. It's so not so much of a concern, really. And you keep it really simple, timpani, bong. You know what? It's not going to last all this long, right? Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, with a lot of very careful scoring that you've had before in terms of tempo fluctuations, why there isn't poco rallentando here, right? Right, and then più meno poco rubato, like I've got in the mock-up, in the sample score. And just like that rubato is giving the conductor permission to kind of flex the beat a little bit and just kind of pull and push at it, so that we really feel how drunken our revelers are here, right? They're just they've drunken maybe a little too much tequila, and maybe they are just like their heads are starting to spin, and the world is just turning into these flashes of light, and so I just feel like the rubato is a big part of that, as well as just like the character, of course, of the scoring, right? Yeah. Yes, I mean, this all works great, and I love the big push right into here. And disciplined, right? Is really beautiful. You keep the brass at bay, right? There's no need to have them screaming yet, right? And then trading off between higher and lower on the bass. Excellent. Ba 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 da 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 da. Yeah, just so nice. Yeah, really good. Reaching up, like, and once again, we see the benefit in dropping things down a fifth, right? So now the horns can really reach up to that B flat, and just you get a brighter color and everything else. Yeah, phenomenal. Right. Bum, 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 da, 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 dun. So if I could just point something out to you here. What if you ended with an eighth note, and then you just had a tiny little comma, right after the eighth note, so that the huge sound in the hall, especially from this low timpani strike and the tuba and the bass trombone, and your bass drum right in here, and just the wash of color from everything else, especially fortissimo brass, could all just settle slightly, so that the conductor could place a beat 1.5, right? Ba 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 ba. You see what I mean? So so there's just a tiny rhythmic gap right in here, right? So I would say just turn these all into eighth notes, and then put a comma right after it, so that there's a slight lift. And yeah, you can have the harp. I mean, you're having the harp start on the half beat anyways, right? So it's perfect time for it to do its. Just one thing I'd point out, though, about these harp glissandos is that they tend to kind of, while they're really beautiful, they tend to sort of obscure the motion that's happening right in here, right? So you've got so like Like, what is going on here? Is it a harp glissando passage, or is it the you know what I mean? What is the most important thing here? And the way that this is scored, it's the harp glissando, right? So watch out, because then will this make as much sense? This is really nice, by the way. The bass clarinet and horns working together in this harmony. So the agitato should actually start on the half beat here, not on the downbeat. So just like let things come to an end, and then agitato on beat 1.5. All right, and then this is so lovely, bringing in the winds as you sort of come to an end, and that really helps to set up the E section. Okay, once again, I need my rehearsal marks. Okay, so watch out for that in future challenges. I swear, I hope that you're going to be available for the next challenge. It's something that I could probably repeat with every single entry for this, but just to say it again for everybody listening, that next year's sample score is going to be phenomenal, and it's going to be different from anything else that we've done, and yet it'll have a few little relationships. It'll have like little resonances with a couple of things we've done already. But it will be unlike anything, and it'll be a surprise. Like you'll see which composer wrote that and what it sounds like, and you go, wow, I just had no idea. Okay, so with that to whet your curiosity, we're going to this beautiful section here. Bum, ba, da, 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 and once again, portato. Maybe some nuances in there, right? Yeah. Oh, it's just beautiful. This is going to glow right in here. One critique I would sort of have about this is that it's really hard to hear the rhythm right in here. And part of that is because of these other elements that you've got in here. You've got the English horn, crescendo here, and first flute, and the bassoons, and the horns in the background, and so on. Okay, so what this is doing, not only is it providing a beautiful cushion, but it is also taking away the sense of enunciation here, and you're also clouding that by slurring everything. All right. And then there's the added problem of going so you have the notes that sustain. You have these two notes sustaining, right? So what's the solution to that? Right? This is a rotating figure, right? So the rotating pattern. How do we score that in a way that maintains interest? Well, the harp is like the perfect, is the perfect instrument to just, to be able to do that. Not that you have to throw in harp there, but it's just, but, going forward, just, go back and listen to the mock-up, and you can sort of hear just like all throughout this, especially with these nice, beautiful, long-held notes in here and so on. They're beautiful, and they shouldn't be taken out. And yet, what is the ultimate effect is that we can't really hear the rotation of the pattern in here, right? And I feel that that's an element that Falla would have really wanted. So, think about it. Maybe harp is something that could have been used, or some other kind of way of like punctuating the attack of the beginning of each note in a very gentle way. Okay. Yeah, so, but to jump back, that's the next thing is you like to think about authenticity of style and choice of melodic voice. And yeah, clarinet solos work really, really well with Falla. Right. That's nice. Support oboe. That's cool. Right, which, of course, is not doubling, it's harmony, right? For people who have forgotten their transposition score reading. And then A2 horns right in here. It's beautiful, the third horn coming in here. Da 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 dum. You know, some nuances here, that's fine, but like, what about our poor little horns right in here? Are they gonna get any kind of, are you gonna warm up the texture for them? Da 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 da. Is any crescendo in there? Da 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 da. And then coming back as an echo. Da da. A little bit of a crescendo. Da da. Like a sigh, right? What if the horns came in here as piano rather than pianissimo? And then that gives you more room to sort of sigh back down, like maybe pianissimo as an echo right in here. Da, 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 da. All right. I had a comment about the harmony in here, the double sharp, right? That was the concern. Some people scoring F sharp and then F double sharp and so on and so forth, but I kind of would rather not get into it. But just think about it, all right, Craig? All right. And then, yeah, bom, bom, bling. Well, here's the harp. Where was that harp before? Anyhow. So we get into this sense of icy distance, and I feel that that's nicely scored. And, very effective. Piccolo on that A on top, and then right under it, the first flute and oboes and everything else. Yeah. You might want to say, like maybe senza vibrato here. Do you know what I'm saying? Just like keep it really, really cool and dun 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 dun, as opposed to dun 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 dun. Right, and then we go to a sense we have to transition from distance into intimacy. On solo violin, I think that works great. I think you can mark this up to mezzo forte and then push into it, right? Crescendo, da 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 dum, and then back out. Especially if you have clarinets under it, right? And I love this bass clarinet in here. That's also what I did with the clarinets on top. Yep, just like the way I did it. Great minds think alike. Huh. If I could say my mind was great, I would say that. Blum, 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 blum. All right, we're back to Jaws again. Da-da-dum, 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 bum, bum, bum. Yeah, it's really nice. Okay, so just to point out one thing. When you're playing the piano and you are holding down the pedal all the way through to the end of the piece, what happens to the pitches that you play before? They sustain, right? So, da-da, da-da-e, and as everything is holding all these pitches, ching, with everybody else. So don't let go, right? Just have these tie, right? And then add the strings and the harp. And then you are in like Flynn, I would say. I just love this creepy low F sharp here, sounding E, an octave lower. Well, great score, Craig. So, if you're sick of hearing me sing your praises, I hope you can stick around for just a couple more minutes as I thank you for this excellent score and for supporting on Patreon, which is just really amazing. I just, I feel grateful every day that my fellow composers feel that this content, this kind of stuff is worth supporting, and, through their generosity are not just helping me, but thousands of other composers out there who, are developing, working on their stuff and need some kind of resources and some kind of community online to have it all make sense. So thanks. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, other Patreon supporters. Thank you, website subscribers, and everybody out there who has watched a video, gotten one of my books, supported the community, or just been a part of the community and supported with comments and feedback and likes and interaction in the various social media web that's out there. I really appreciate it all, and it makes everything worth worth going on with. And especially like during this time, we're getting towards the end, and I know a lot of people have, some people have made a lot of comments, and they're not the people who I am speaking to now about this. It's the people who have not really engaged very much or not at all. And that is, we really need your feedback. And if you have not left a comment or very much in the way of comments and feedback and views and so on, please go watch a video, make a comment, some kind of supportive contribution, even if it's just like saying, hey, I liked your piece, right? Or like, wow, you did piccolo on that melody there, and I did E flat clarinet. Like, just observations can be enough to really help out another composer and to help start a conversation. Anyways, it's all appreciated, and what can I do but go on to the next video and have it ready for you very soon for you to watch in this ongoing chain of evaluations. Thanks, everybody.